This is WFO Radio.
Good morning, everybody. Joe Castello back with you at WFO Radio, and we are at a special time. We are bright and early on a Tuesday morning. Those of you watching into the future, please disregard my time stamping the show. What a race we had in Topeka, Kansas. The Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals presented by Pet Armor. We're going to recap that show here today. And all that happened, including the John Force double, the Pro Stock burndown, Dallas Glen's victory. We'll discuss it with NHRA's Alan Reinhart and myself and take some commentary from the audience out there, see what you guys think. A lot to get into, right? And that's what having race after race after race is all about. Gives us all kinds of subject matter, and it is going to be great. But before we get too far into it, I want to tell you that the travel and the nature of the schedule has made it a great challenge to connect with all of the drivers to the most convenient of times. And so what we're doing is pretty much just talking to the drivers, saying, like, when can you do it? And we'll adjust to you as best as we can. And that's been one of the benefits of WFO all these years. Like, we are able to be flexible. And this system that we're using, going live on social media, live on our YouTube channel, WFO Radio TV, and Twitter. Welcome to all of you out there on Twitter. That's been growing a lot. We appreciate you just being flexible. And when you get the notification, you subscribe to the page, you subscribe and click the bell on YouTube. It sends out a notification, and then you check it out. And if you can't watch it live, that's fine. It's really not about live. It's about whenever you can. We've got some people on there live giving us commentary, giving us instant reaction. It's not about building a huge live audience. It's about you guys sharing it after the fact, and I really appreciate that. Why am I telling you this? John Force, 4 p.m. today, later today, 4 p.m. approximately. We're going to go live at 4, going to connect with John sometime after 4. He's going to the airport. His flight has changed. Everybody knows the travel chaos that's going on out there. And so we're just going to try to be flexible. And we're going to try to get John. We're going to try to have John at 4 p.m. Look at this. 4 p.m. John Force. And we'll talk about the burn down, your thoughts about the Lucas Oil Nationals coming up in Brainerd, all of that on that show as well. So you're going to get a lot of drag racing talk today, and we're going to just try to stay connected. And Brittany, we're hoping for her tomorrow. May or may not happen. Dallas Glenn, he says he's a lock whenever I ask him. Way to go, Dallas. Way to go, Dallas. Now, we're waiting for Alan Reinhart to get connected. He is getting connected as we speak. I see him down there getting ready. Let me tell you about the people who make it possible for me to do this show, like Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology, Hidden Horsepower, the podcast, TotalSeal.com. We're going to be doing more of our Pro Stock, behind-the-scenes Pro Stock videos coming out real soon. But it's all an exercise to help you understand that ring seal is vital. If you're building an engine, don't use the technology used 10 or 15 years ago or even 5 years ago, because it's always advancing. Go to TotalSeal.com. And I've got a quote from Hartford about the burn down that is very illuminating. A lot of reporting, actual reporting on the burn down, guys. You know how I hate reporting. I always consider myself more of an entertainer, low-level entertainer, like lounge singer. But every now and again, reporting must be done. And so we've done some reporting. Marvin Rodak, RodaksCoffeeandGrills.com, 817-924-6821. Hot sauces and spice rubs and grilling tools and techniques, grills, everything. But it's the coffee that keeps me coming back. And I'm enjoying a little Rodak's coffee this morning. And what it is, it's culture shock. Every time I get back from the hotel where you get that weird packet of coffee, wherever it came from, who knows what it is it's sawdust that's dyed brown, and you just think it's coffee. Who knows? But the Rodak's coffee brings me back. I know I'm in the WFO studio when I'm enjoying a little Rodak's coffee. What's up, Marvin? 817-924-6821. Also, our great friends at samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. Speaking of a great sponsor with a great product, educating the next generation of engine builders, CNC machinists, all of those coming up through Samtech. Crew chiefs having great success. Samtech.edu. Give them a call. Tell them you heard about it on WFO Radio, and they are approved to train veterans under the GI Bill. Many different great benefits at samtech.edu. And, of course, Frank Hawley's drag racing school. Does Frank train the drivers to go through a staging duel? I don't think so. But He does give you the opportunity to drive dragsters, show up with just the clothes on your back, and leave with an experience of a lifetime. FrankHawley.com. Plus our friends at Nitro Fish doing our 10th anniversary t-shirt, and the WFO store right there on WFOradio.com. Oh, look at all these people, man. Look at all these people. Todd, loving the controversy. Thanks for the fun. Bruno. Jay is in the house and watching, but you know who else is in the house? He is the voice. He's in a house. The voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart. Alan, you're on. We got you. Ooh, dealing with the internet. Fuzzy Alan. But I can see you. What's up, AR? Oh, you
I can't see you, Joe.
You can't see me, but you can hear me?
I don't think the Wi-Fi here at the airport's...
Wow. Yeah. Try your cell service. You can't see me, but we can see you, just so you know. Don't do anything controversial, Alan. Try just using your cell service. We'll have you reconnect. Try just using the cell service. Alan Reinhart you can't hear me. You can't hear me. Let's blow through some of these commentary, and then I'll talk to you about some of the things that I thought over the course of the weekend. First, John Force, 154 career victories, being able to double up with Brittany. They've been looking for that so long. Brittany and David Grubnick, Max Savage, that team breaking through for the win, beating the Capco team on the way. That's what those of us who want to see an exciting championship battle, that's a good story. Let's see. Jim says this one should be a good one. Yeah, they're all good, Jim. WFO says Derek, good morning, says Jeremy. Hey, I want to remind everybody, the Ignition podcast is in the archive. We had Tommy Noodles on. Those of you who know Tommy Noodles back from the XM satellite radio days, got some news that I had him share on the show, and you should definitely listen to it. Please do when you get a chance, not right now. Millstadt, Illinois in the house. Lonnie, good morning. Joe and Alan, missed you guys last week. I was on vacation. I decided for the first time in maybe, 10 years to take a week off and take a vacation on WFO after the Western Swing. Went to Vegas. It was great. Stayed at Cosmo for a little bit. It was great. Had a fantastic time. It was refreshing. Appreciate it. But, I've been saying, I always got nervous back in the day, like, oh my God, the audience is going to flee, right? We're going to lose everybody. They're going to go away. They're going to forget us. And that is probably true, but they can't miss you if you're never gone. Let's see if Alan Reinhart, who I miss. All right, Alan, we see you much better now.
Yeah, I'm at the airport here, and I just hooked up the airport Wi-Fi. Apparently, they don't have enough bandwidth or something because it just wouldn't quite go through. So disconnect, reconnect. Anyway, I'm here. So
you look great. Tim Fabrizi is out there watching. Congratulations, Tim. Great job. Huge victory. Fabrizi doing a lot of work in the cockpit of John's car, getting a lot of love. Also, WFO radio listener. I love that about the show, Alan. Not only do the listeners watch, but the racers watch. That is very, very cool. This guy wants to know how'd I do in Vegas. If he means gambling wise, not good. Are you outside? What? You're outside.
Yeah, I'm outside. If I go inside, I got to put a mask on. The mask will lose like big so I just found a little spot outside, but. Sorry, the bus will be leaving.
You're running over me with the bus now, and you're out. Okay, so we're going to wait for the bus to go away to talk about the burn down. I've spoken with a couple of people this morning, including Brad Hardy. So let's talk about John Force and the big historic double first, while everybody shares the show and gets the audience up there. What do you got? Force.
They just had a great day. They had a really good race car, obviously. It'd be interesting to see what Fabrizi thinks they actually ran in the final. John was blinking the top light and went 4 flat. So that thing was going to run 94, 95. They just had a really good race car on a really hot racetrack, and nobody had anything for him. And that includes, Robert in the second round. So, we're getting into the point where, Brainerd is supposed to be not quite so hot on Friday and on Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully that plays out. Indy can certainly be warm. We get down to Dallas, that can certainly be warm. But as we get into the countdown to the championship, there are going to be some cool tracks. We go to the Grove, we go to Bristol, but there's still going to be some warm tracks. And right now, those guys look like they've got a pretty good handle on it.
Yes, absolutely. And I spoke with John after the race, and obviously he's over the moon about the Brittany double. That really is what mattered most to him, that he got that bit of history. And she agreed. They've wanted this for a long time, and they scored it.
The funniest thing for me was when John came down on the stage and we were talking in front of the fans, and he said, well, I never got to do this with Courtney, and I never got to do this with Ashley. And I went, really? Ashley was so disappointed that you forgot you guys doubled up when she was driving the A Fuel car back in the day. So, okay, it might not have been Top Fuel and Funny car, but still. it's a double up, and they did get one. Ashley and John got one. So now apparently we just need Courtney to come back and drive something other than a funny car. Simple as that. Put her on a pro stock motorcycle.
Right, Courtney. Okay, this is now the reason you have to come back, Courtney. You have to come back. Great racing, very exciting. But I think everybody, and since we might lose you, it's possible.
You're not going to lose me. I'm good.
All right, let's get into the burn down, the pro stock burn down. First of all, the idea that a pro stock burn down between the 8 and 9 pair is going to knock a John Force double up off the front page of the drag racing, headlines. I think that's great for pro stock, right? So that it happened regardless of what went down afterwards. I always say this is the kind of stuff that makes sports radio work for every other sport. That's why every city has got at least one, sometimes two sports radio stations, because you got to have this stuff. It can't just be results. So here we go. We got something. You were on the mic. Give me your perspective first, because, initially you and I disagreed. I have modified my opinion somewhat based on some information, but, walk us through your experience on this after doing this for 30 years.
Well, first I was surprised. I wouldn't think that Bruno and Mason would have any kind of a personal rivalry or anything. It's not like these two guys hate each other and we've seen them get into it before. So that was the beginning. And I guess Bruno had just decided he was going in last no matter what. And Mason apparently decided the same thing, that he was going to wait. So, once you get into it, then I think there comes a point where ego takes over a little bit, right? It's like, okay, well, I didn't care before, but now I'm not folding. And they just played it out. And my personal opinion, there comes a time when enough is enough, guys. And, I've talked to a number of people that said they should have let them sit there until they run out of gas. A pro stock car will idle for 20 minutes before it runs out of gas. Did you really want to sit there for 20 minutes? I didn't, and I don't think any of the fans did either. So that's when Brad Hardy gets involved as the official starter. And, initially gave him a nudge. It's like, come on, guys, let's go. We got, let's race. Nobody moved. He got a little bit more adamant about it. And then, coming up on whatever it was, 4 minutes or so, enough is enough. And he went up there and basically ordered both of them to go in and stage. Nobody did. They got thrown out. And, but I've had a number of people, both my email and text people, and, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. It's, okay, then name me the sport where you can defy the official. And that's okay. Just tell me what sport that is. I would like to hear about that. Well, and what? You do what the official tells you to do. And, like I said, I think it played out plenty long enough, but at some point you just got to go race. And, the discussion came up a couple of times. You and I actually touched on it. It's like, well, push them off and let them run at the back. And a lot of this stuff, you've got to be situational, okay? If this happens at the final of the U.S. Nationals, I think you go get a cup of coffee and wait. I really do. But when it's the 8 and 9 pair, which are first out on Sunday morning, and the reason that 8 and 9 are first out on Sunday morning is because nobody wants to be. Everybody wants to see somebody go down, right? Lay down some tire tracks for everybody behind them. The number one qualifier in pro stock never says, I want to be first. So that's why 8 and 9 have to go first. So if you now push them back to the end of the line, you've set precedent. Next week, when the 8 and 9 qualifiers don't want to go first, they just don't stage. Yeah, go ahead, push me back to the end of the line, because I'd rather be last anyway. That would be better. And then where does it end? The 7-10 guy goes, no, I don't want to. We won't stage either. So at some point, you literally have to draw the line in the sand, and then you have to enforce it. And that's exactly what happened. I hate that fans missed a race. That they missed a race the second round as well. We're getting the bye run. But I think at some point, you have to say, guys, enough is enough. You came to race. If you're going to race, race. If you don't want to race, get out of the way, because we got people that do want to race. And that's basically what it came down to.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Hey, Tim Fabrizi, before we get too far, he said it was going to 95 if he hadn't gone deep, in his opinion. And so, and Tim would know.
Right. He was in a solid 5 when he's blinking the top light. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So,
yes.
But the car was just, ran great all weekend on a really hot racetrack. Those guys have got a combination right now that looks like really solid. And, I think if it was
And I'm thinking we might have lost Alan. There he is, frozen up on our screen. you can still hear me, but I can't hear him. And he kind of just crapped out. So we're going to give him a quick second. And while I do, I will read you a couple of quotes that I received. There he is. He's back. He froze up for a second. Well, it's the internet.
Okay.
It's imperfect. We just tough it out. The idea that you can be in an airport and I can be here and we're doing this thing, like it's a miracle. We're going to have John Force from an airport later today. It's a miracle. I'm not going to, and it ties in in that people sitting at home in front of their keyboards with zero responsibility for anything that's happened can demand and comment in any way that they wish. That is their right. But when you're in the moment and you have responsibility for many things, that is a different story. So I reached out to Brad Hardy this morning. He's been the chief starter since the Internationals 2019. I think he's only missed 2 races. He's been the Division 7 starter since 2001, I believe. And I asked him, I was like, hey, what's your deal? And he said, listen, my job is to ensure a safe, fair race for everyone. It's like, I love this. The 2 guys, I have no ill will or anything like that. But the show, the program, it has to move forward. It has to move forward. And there is just, obvious limitations. And it sounded, he was bummed that it went that way, but that's the way it went. So then I asked him, I said, hey, if you could go back and do it again now, having had this experience, how would it go? And he said, I would have intervened sooner. I would have gotten involved sooner. And but he's taken the experience and he's moving forward. And I've heard so many analogies and comparisons to Buster Couch, right? Everybody wants to go with Buster. And we all do. There's a monument right there in Topeka to Buster Couch, right? How many runs do you think Buster officiated, Alan, before he ever officiated a run on television? Like thousands and thousands,
I
right?
mean, hundreds of thousands, yeah.
Thousands. And during the era of genuine and real burndown. So by the time Buster became like a television personality that everybody got to know, he had so much experience. So to compare Brad's situation to Buster's situation, I think is very, totally unfair. And Brad found himself in a moment. He did what he had to do. He made the call. He's responsible. He's taken the responsibility. And that's it. As far as who made the actual cue call, I don't have that information because there's race control. You were up there. Do you know that?
Well, to go back to Buster, I mean, a ton of respect for Buster. I actually was around during Buster's era. You guys realize Buster retired in 1995, right? 26 years ago. So again, to go back to whatever sport, tell me what a sport is officiated exactly the same now as it was 26 years ago. How would you like to take a baseball guy and go, oh, well, what would they have done at the 1939 World Series if they'd had video replay? It's just not the same. You can't compare the eras. And Buster also, in an era before auto start, one of the ways that Buster got his point across about who's in charge up here, if 2 guys would go up there and screw around on the starting line, he'd have them stage and sit on the chip for 10 or 12 seconds before he flipped the switch. And when they came back the next time, they understood Buster's in charge. We need to not play this game. We need to. And so that's just how things have evolved. Brad Hardy doesn't have that tool in his box anymore. And there's times when I guarantee you, he would like to. But there comes a time when you have to make a decision based on what's happening right now. Does that mean every time 2 pro stock cars don't stage for 30 seconds, you're going to get thrown out? No, absolutely not. But you have to take case by case, and circumstances are different in every case. So that's what you've got to figure out. Brad's had a lot of years standing on the starting line when there wasn't a TV camera, and when there wasn't there, when he's had to make a decision. Now, a super gas racer can get just as upset as a pro stock racer, believe me, and Brad would tell you the same thing. But when you have to make a decision in the moment, you make the best decision you can, and you simply live with it. You rely on your experience and what you've done in the past, and you make the best decision you can in the moment, and you live with it. And I think, again, I got no issue with what Brad did. I think enough is enough. There comes a time that's like, guys, enough. Either do something or get out of the way. And they didn't do anything, so he threw him out of the way.
All right, here's a comment from Bruno this morning. Reached out to Bruno, and I hate being a reporter, right? I love to just be the entertainer and talk about what other people report. But in this case, I think it was very important. Bruno says, watch the burn down from 2012 with Matt Smith and Hector Arana. This is how burn downs were handled for decades in drag racing. That having been said, though, I'm over it. I was over it 30 minutes later after I jumped into my comp car, which he had 005 reaction time, by the way. I have no ill will towards Mason at all. I actually walked over to Bruno. So Bruno is moving forward. And Matt Hartford made a great post, one that his opinion and your opinion are very much aligned about the 8 and 9 pair being first down as a penalty to their poor qualifying. And the Pandora's box it may open to allow those guys to control the situation by not staging. And Mason commented on Matt's post and said, I totally agree with what you are saying about the 8 and 9 qualifiers trying to do this more often to avoid being first out. I just feel like normal procedure would have been after a minute or two, they back us up, tell us to knock it off, and let's race, which I would have obeyed. Just seems NHRA's way of doing things isn't nearly the same of what it used to be, so I have to learn and adjust, said Mason McGaha. And there are different people involved and different situations involved. Live TV, the television recording, you can't sit there for 5 minutes. Those people are working and cutting the show and making the show. Things have to move, which is very different than anything Buster had to deal with. And even going back to 2012 with Mark Lyle, things are very different the way the program must move forward.
I think the bottom line is really simple. You must obey the instructions of the official. And what Mason said, there's certainly some truth in that. There have been plenty of times when they backed them off. You go over and open the door and go, look, guys, knock it off, basically. But the bottom line is still, however the message gets delivered, once the message is delivered that you need to do this now, you need to obey the officials. So, I think everybody learned from it. The craziest one I got an email in my announcer email that said, I can't believe that NHRA is manufacturing all this fake drama. We all know that Bruno and Mason don't have a problem with each other. This was completely orchestrated by NHRA, and it's the stupidest thing I ever saw. And I responded everybody said we need it. Even people tell me, I wish your house burned to the ground. And I said, so let me get this straight. You think NHRA went to Bruno and Mason and said, okay, we've got a plan. Here's what we want. Don't stage. Just sit there. We're going to throw you both out so nobody gets to race. Are you with me? And they both went, yeah, that sounds good.
Sign me up.
Seriously?
Well, and that's why, regardless of how it went, it's good. Regardless, we're disappointed and Troy got a bye and all of that stuff. Regardless, it's good. Many people don't understand, and many people are having opinions, and many people are causing controversy. But generally, this is a big, broad topic that's educating people about the rules of pro stock. And, these guys are going to race again. They will race again. And, whatever it was that caused this, maybe they'll compress it next time. But someone's going to lose, right? And it'll be 2 races worth of losing, whoever that is, and they will feel it. Now, one final note I had a conversation with Tim Freeman and Greg Anderson in the airport. And for me, it's how many hours of deep thought are we taking to get to the perfect answer, when Brad and the officiating team had to do it live in real time on the starting line in front of the world in 3 minutes. And it's so easy for everybody to create the perfect answer after analyzing. But say, all right, Greg, what was it? He said, well, this has never happened before, the double DQ. Maybe you just shut him off right there and you go talk to him and refire and go. That would have been the perfect solution, right? In that moment, create a third option. It's a Kobayashi Maru of situations. But that third option isn't available in the 3 minutes necessarily. And now that we have this experience and we've seen it go down like this, maybe next time it'll be a little bit different. But for the people who are so angry, I can tell you exactly what'll be different.
I can tell you exactly what'll be different next time. When Brad goes up there and goes, they're going to stage.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be sitting in the car going, he threw out the last guy that defied him. I'm not getting thrown out. That's exactly what's going to happen next time.
Will this put a cool down on any potential staging duel, burn down? A lot of people have been very, the commentary has been something like this. We have wanted this, staging duels, burn downs, controversy, all of that for so long. We've asked for it for so long. We finally got it. And we threw them both out. Doesn't that force the drivers to not engage in that behavior at all?
And again, I think, there comes a time when enough is enough. If every pair of pro stock drivers in the first round took a 4-minute burn down, the first round of pro stock now takes an hour. Is that what you want?
No,
of course not. So, these things are going to happen organically from time to time, and the crowd will get ramped up and things. But when Brad has had enough and says, guys, it's time to race, then you need to follow the officials' instructions and you need to race. And I think it's as simple as that.
And Hartford's post, which I will read later on, same deal. Like at some point, to paraphrase it, was this. He goes, it's about the fans until it becomes about the rules. And after the second warning, it's no longer about the fans. It's about the rules. And the rules must be adhered to when the starter comes to you for the second time. That's that. And I agree. And, I was so into it. I was on the starting line trying to pump up the crowd and everything. And it's like, oh, man, we're 2 minutes into this thing, guys. I think the total time, I think they shut the engines off at 3 minutes and 16 seconds. 3 minutes, 26 seconds.
I it was close. It was close to 4 minutes, I thought, but whatever. It was a long time.
That is too long. At that point, someone has to break. Like, come on, guys. Like, you gotta go in. But hey, we've learned a lesson. We've had an experience. We're gonna take it. We're gonna move forward. And that having been said, you can continue to post your comments out there. But let's talk a little more in depth now about. Let's stay with pro stock since we're there. Kyle Koretsky, Erica Enders on one side of the ladder, Dallas Glenn, Troy Coughlin on the other side of the ladder. And in this case, KB Young Guys beat the elite team and sets up a Dallas Glenn Kid Chaos final round where Dallas is trip, zip, perfect and wins his second race. Yeah,
and, he wanted, he rolled in a little bit as well. He said that, when he went in, he thought, but it ended up being the perfect amount. He knew how bad Koretsky wanted it, and he was trying to take every advantage he could on the starting line. He also said, which I thought was really interesting, he said, winning the 4 wide is great, but the 4 wide is always going to be, a little different, it's just, different. It's not the same as going up head to head with 4 different opponents and sending all 4 of them back. And so he feels like, as much as he's had the trophy that says 4 wide, he feels like he now won a legitimate pro stock race. And good. I think that's great. The last guy to win with a perfect light was Alex Laughlin, did it in 2017 out of Bristol in the final round. And, Kid Chaos is going to get one. There's just a lot of good cars out there right now. And, of course, the question moves on to next week, when will Greg finally? So we'll find out sooner or later. This week, the elite team has been kind of having their run of the field, as it were. Not that they've dominated everybody, but they've been winning the races. And so this week it looked like KB got one back.
Yes, exactly. And some people mentioning other sanctions, PDRA, letting Mountain Motor Pro Stop guys sit there for 4 minutes. Television, guys, television. That's the benefit of not being on television. Nobody being there, right? Like, no offense, PDRA. Like, I love what their cars are doing, and I love the people there, and I know many of them. But when you are a television sport, you are broadcasting on a very tight timeline. And I can tell you that it makes all the difference in the world. You cannot just allow 2 competitors to sit there and gobble up 5 minutes, which would have pushed everything back. Even if we weren't live, they're still building the show. And at the same time, you'll have the same people say, well, we need better TV stuff. Our show needs to be better on TV. Well, you can't have any one thing take 5 minutes out of the first round. Like, I don't think so. I think that would be a problem.
Sorry, I put some water down the wrong pipe. No, I mean, I agree. I think, if you want to go up there and do, then fine. But there has to be a limit. And I think we've pretty much figured out where the limit is. So, we'll see what happens next time. It's disappointing that we won't have pro stock when we get up to Brainerd, because that would have been fun to see what happens next. And I'm not sure if Bruno's running Indy or not, but I guarantee you the next time Bruno and Mason happen to race each other, everybody will be watching. Kind of like the Greg and Erica thing out in Pomona a couple of years ago when Greg qualified 15th because they were trying to beat her first round for the championship. It'll make people watch, and that's a good thing.
And the conversations that are coming up, like Steve Connor says, simple way to fix it is to make a 1 minute rule. I get there and time schedule to keep. which is interesting. We talked about this on the Ignition show, and I thought about it. And initially, like, the pitch clock that they're talking about in baseball, but I'm against it after the fact, because if you put a 1 minute rule, then everyone is going to take a minute. They're going to be like, oh man, I got 40 seconds left. I'm going to continue to take it. And I think by the way, I think that's Steve Connor who beat me in the 1991 division final in the high school category at the division final round. So thanks a lot, Steve. I still remember that. You robbed me of you beat me fair and square, man. Congratulations on that. But yeah, like a pitch clock for drag racing, I don't know if it works.
No, absolutely not. And I think if one gets implemented, it'll get implemented in Top Sportsman way before it gets implemented in Pro Stock. But it just, you know what? It happened. We all learned a lesson, and let's move on and see. If it becomes an epidemic, then I think we start talking about doing something drastically different. At this point, a situation came up, the situation was handled. I think everybody now knows going forward pretty much where the line is. And from an NHRA standpoint, I think you just have to do that sometimes. And I've, at the division races, I've said for years, when it's like, okay, we're going to start at 8:00. And, the cars just don't come to the lanes until 15 or 20 after 8. At some point, you have to tell them, okay, look, guys, we're skipping the qualifying session. And until you do, then everybody just keeps doing what they want to do. So at some point, you have to draw a line, and you have to say, this is it, and then that fixes the problem, and you move forward.
But for fans of Pro Stock, the idea that we're talking about Pro Stock first and with passion, and people have opinions, and you're right, and you're wrong, and I'm right, and you're wrong, all of that on a weekend that the Force family doubled up, our two of our most recognizable racers. This should be a signal. Pro Stock racers, maybe don't do exactly this ever again, but don't be afraid to be personalities, because people will watch if you do things that entertain them and interest them. I think that's the lesson that is learned, and we're finding our way. But let's dial in on Brittany a little bit more. This was a huge victory. She was number one. You could watch them in those morning interviews with me on the stage, becoming less enthralled by number one qualifiers. And finally, this weekend, Grubnick was like, dude, this doesn't matter. And Brittany was like, yeah, but, and they went out and got the job done. There was a Byron in the field, yes, but she went through Palmer, she went through Steve Torrance, and she went through Clay Milliken. That run against Steve, that is, I think, the run to focus on, because that's, those are the last 4 championships between the two of them. And it's a signal that they're for real.
I think so. I also think that, I'm not saying there's a chink in the Capco armor, but, for all these weeks, we talked about when those guys were good, they needed to be good. When they needed to win a close one, when they did. Always just, all of the little variables always seem to fall their way. And the last couple of weeks, it seems like not so much anymore. Car's still running good. Steve's still doing his job good. They haven't changed anything. But anybody that has ever raced or played any sport knows that sometimes the ball just always bounces your way. And sometimes it doesn't. And there's no way to predict when that's going to happen or not happen. Brittany's car's been running good all year. She's come out on the wrong side of a couple of pretty close ones. Grubnick has been pretty adamant about it. And I talked to Dave quite a bit. I talked to him a little bit in the winter circle after it was all over with. And he's been pretty adamant about the fact that, running great on Friday or Saturday, but we need to win on Sunday. That's what we need to do. We have to figure out a way to make this happen. And they now have. And, even with that solo run, she ran 374. I mean, send somebody up here, so it wasn't going to make any difference. But Brittany said something pretty funny when we were doing the winter circle down on the starting line with the fans. She said, basically, David had been jinxing him all year long because he didn't realize that Camping World changed hats. He said every morning they'd be talking about, we need to get a yellow hat. We need to get a yellow hat. Well, you got the yellow hat for qualifying number 1, and he didn't realize that the winners are now blue. So once he said, okay, we need to get a blue hat, and apparently that's been, the one thing holding him back.
Yes, exactly. And that who knows? Well, I got a column in National Dragster right now. I haven't gotten it yet because I always get mine, Florida. I got to carry it all the way down to me and hand it to me. But it's about exactly that. Right? Like whatever. In the traditional, we just had the Field of Dreams thing and everybody was into it. Right. And I think about Kevin Costner in Bull Durham, which is if you think it's helping you, it is. And drag racers are very similar that way. So maybe they fixed their mojo with that. Grubby was jinxing them. And who knows, they may go on. But Derek says, Capco's testing. Why wouldn't you? And I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are testing. So we'll see as we, get to Brainerd and then Indy. Believe me, they'll stop testing at Indy, right? That'll be one that they're trying to win.
Well, the Capco boys do a lot of testing during qualifying, and a lot of people do. Not usually on race day. On race day, they usually come out and get serious because how many times has Steve said it? We're taking another trophy back to Kilgore. So, are they? Maybe. It's not like, they're smoking the tires every second run, or it's not like they're still running good. And, we'll find out when we get into the countdown if, just exactly what is going on. But, they've never had a huge advantage for the field. They've always had a great car, and they've always had all of those little intangibles and all those close misses just kind of go their way. So as long as you can keep that going, you're unstoppable. But you never know when, the mojo necessarily, I'm not saying turn, but just cool down a little bit.
Exactly. Joey Rocket, who was hanging out in the Capco pit all weekend long, says that they were not testing. Who knows what testing even means, right? Like, it could be the most minor of things. But I also know Steve wanted to beat Brittany. You're not testing in the semifinals against Brittany Force. Like, that's not happening. You're trying to win that race. But good for Brittany. Great win. And now let's double back on John, because John is interesting in that he's just doing what he can do. And the guy's winning. Like, he's winning races. He's going up against J.R. Todd. He's winning races. I listened to the call with Brian and Tony. And, like Tony said, well, if it was an 8th mile race, J.R. would have won the race. But it's not. And John Force won the race. The guy's 72 years old. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It's a feat of modern
The car right now is the first time, I think, in 7 or 8 years that John legitimately been to point new in funny car right now. And that's just how close it is. Ron wins the race last week, takes over the point lead. John wins this week, takes over the point lead. It's very possible whoever wins in Reinhart could take over the point lead if it's not John. But the way the class is right now, it's just that tight. And the car is clearly, John has said for years that the car is going to be what keeps him young. If he had to be out there, running marathons or throwing shot puts or doing whatever other sport you want to do at 72 years old, he wouldn't be able to compete as well with the younger ones. But because in drag racing, the car is such a big part of the equation, and right now the car is doing its job.
And it wasn't an easy day for Force. Like, he went through Robert, he went through Cruz, he went through JR. Like, come on. That's a lot of championships that John, who says, don't let the old man in there, he had to beat these people, and he got the job done. By the way, Paul Lee fighting to be in the top 10. Paul Lee cares about being in the top 10. He cares. And John went through them all and won 154th race.
Yep, and he's got a car right now that looks like he can continue winning. But funny car, there's a reason the top 6 are all within 3 or 4 rounds in points, is because their top 6 are all really good. Whether we're talking about Hagen, whether we're talking about JR, whether we're talking about John or Robert or Cruz. I don't believe Cruz is in the top 6, but he's got a really good car out there right now. He and Tim Wilkerson had that on-track incident that made them both go to backup cars, and then Cruz still came out and went to the semifinals, which I think says a lot about his team. There's a lot going on in funny car right now. It's probably going to be, if you had to right now make a championship prediction, I think funny cars is going to be the toughest class to predict, just because the competition is so close, and there are so many good cars out there that are not only capable of winning, but are winning on a regular basis.
Yes, totally agree. And there's your Camping World analysis. Before we let you go, Alan, I want to talk about a couple of things in other categories. For me, the headline of the race, like, even with all this stuff, all this amazing stuff, Dusty Meyer winning Vortex Superchargers Top Sportsman, Rachel Meyer winning in Top Alcohol Dragster at their home track, in a year that they've suffered a horrific personal loss. Dusty's dad, Joe, lost, and that the magical moment. Like, how do things happen? Why do things happen in this world of ours? That was one of those where things were happening, bizarre things, and at the end of the day, Dusty got to experience, like, when he rolled into the track, I'm sure, like, what could I do to celebrate my dad, win this race? And he did. That's amazing.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Dusty's dad, Joe, is Randy Meyer's brother. Randy, who is Megan and Rachel's father. So, yeah, they were all kind of on a mission that weekend, and it was a pretty emotional moment when they were down at the Parade of Champions talking to you. And I know that they had a big family moment over in the winner's circle a little bit later on too, with the two of them, the two cars together in teams. So, yeah, it's like you said, sometimes these supernatural, for lack of a better term, things just seem to happen, right? Whatever you want to call it. If you want to believe in divine intervention, if you want to think of a higher power, but something that's like something weird was going on in the other lane most of the time when Dusty pulled up, and it was going his way. So it was a pretty special moment, no question. And I think that's going to be one that the family will remember for years.
Absolutely. And Rachel getting it done in Top Alcohol Dragster. Sean Bellemere, and they go on and win the race, but that Doug Gordon, Sean Bellemere run, that was a statement pass by the Killer Bees that they're not going anywhere. Gordon had been quicker all weekend long for the most part, certainly in eliminations, and they stepped up and they got him. I love watching those two guys race. Like, that'd be a match race I'd pay to see.
Yeah, it's fun because those two teams are so good. They genuinely respect each other. They're going up there to race. Not to play games or goof off or try to get inside. They're going up there to race because they both believe we have the best team. We don't need to do anything else to make it happen. And, Doug had been quicker all day long. And then his car slowed down in the semifinals. I mean, all the credit in the world to the Bees because they picked up a little bit. But Sean's car slowed down like 400 or 500. When I'm up there, you're watching the race and you normally think, okay, we're within 200 or 300s. What's Sean's reaction time going to be? Because I think it was 15 in the first round or some like psychic, ridiculous, stupid thing. And he can go up there basically and say, okay, I want to be 25 this on a tree and do it. And so when I watched him leave and Doug actually left first, I thought, well, there you go, because that's what Sean was going to have to do to win it. And then when the scoreboards came on, I'm like, is that right? I mean, sir. But for whatever reason, Doug's car slowed down. And, the old classic story, you picked a really bad time to make your worst run. If they make that run in the second round, no problem. They make that run in the first round, no problem. But they make it against Sean, and all of a sudden, problem.
And that's the thing. Like, we could talk about that run coming up. Like, you could analyze that run for 20 minutes before the run. The wealth of blessings that is our deal at the NHRA is we got so many categories, so many people, so many personalities, so many runs, so little time to talk about each of them. But that is the Clash of the Titans gets thrown out there a lot. But Sean Bellemere, Doug Gordon, Anthony Bertazzi, and Danny Nelson, like those runs, like that one run is worthy of deep analysis, and we do as much as we can, and hopefully the fans get involved. Greg Camplain wins Comp Eliminator, said he looked at the ladder and he felt like, hey, just don't screw it up. Wyatt Wagner, young kid, getting it done in Super Stock, beating the best of the best. Chris Knutson in Stock Eliminator. Austin Williams in Super Comp. Austin Williams at Kansas. Wow.
Yeah, Jimmy DeFrank at Pomona. You just,
yeah,
for whatever reason, put me in a car, put me on the track. Okay, who's going to be runner-up this week? With Wes Neely basically destroying the points, especially down in the division. That's why Austin said, well, I guess I'll see if I can do some damage somewhere else, because he wasn't going to be able to do it in stock. But, that place has been certainly very kind to him and continues to do so.
I just got a text from Bruno. The question was, do you have plans to run the car again this year? Indy ? Answer, yes. So there you go. The question is answered. Colin Becker and Supergas first win. Dusty, of course, top sportsman. Danny Nelson, just an unbelievable racer, top dragster. And in Factory Stock Showdown, Constant Aviation. A wheel stand, Alan.
Yeah,
a wheel
the
stand.
semifinal. The semifinal wheel stand, if that wasn't the run of the race, it was certainly close. It was, I said sitting up there, I would have lifted 3 times. It wasn't that it was necessarily too high out of control, although, when it's climbing at 100 feet or so, I'm thinking at some point, but it was moving to the wall. And, if I'm in there, I'm going, yeah, concrete Camaro. I'm going, right? Just how do I get away from that? But he hung with it and won the thing. Leah going to the final again, I think that shows the Dodges are certainly competitive now. She had a great car during the middle of the day and then ended up knocking the tire off in the final. But I don't know, and I couldn't find anybody could tell me where all the Mustangs were again this weekend. In Brainerd, they had a big NMRA race that was coming up, and to make all the changes to your car to go run at altitude and then have to come back and change everything back, I could see that. I don't know why they didn't, why the Fords were not in Topeka. There hasn't been like anything that I know of that NHRA would have done to keep them away. I mean, that rule change, anything like that. So I honestly don't know. It's a better show, I think, when all the manufacturers come. But, the Chevys and the Dodges put on a heck of a show.
So Chuck Watson posted, there was some, in one of the, you're scrolling Facebook, so you don't know I don't know where I read this, right? One of the Factory Showdown groups or whatever. And everybody's on there complaining about the Fords and how come NHRA is holding them down. And that's not what's happening at all, right? It just goes to show you, like here, Jim, for instance, says, I guess if you get to the pro stock level and don't understand courtesy staging, you need to be DQ'd. There's no courtesy, that's not really what's going on. But that's okay. Our whole goal here is to educate. So people were writing all kinds of crazy stuff. And Chuck Watson had to intervene. And he's like, hey, guys, we don't have a problem with the NHRA. We plan to be there more next year. It has to do with geography. It has to do with the schedule, the further west it is, the region, the schedule. And once they've decided to not run point this year, they are prioritizing other things. But he said that next year you're going to see more Cobra Jet. And I took him at his word, right? Like he put it out there. I'm paraphrasing. People can go find it. But he said that there's no big beef right now. But they started the season doing other things. And so to go try to win one Wally in the middle of the year at the expense of the schedule and the money and the travel and the work and the effort and runs on the car, the engines are they brittle maybe a little bit, to just go to an NHRA race in the middle of the year when you go no shot at the championship. It made sense to me what he wrote.
Okay, if that's what it is, that's what it is. My mentality would be, and it's not my money. Okay, so, but I would think if I've got a weekend off, Topeka ain't like dragging to Seattle. It's not that far away. And, the weather looked like it was going to be fairly nice, and that was far enough out. If you're going, okay, we're not going to go down there because it's probably going to be 100 million degrees. But I don't know. I mean, I think, whether it's a chance to experiment, whether it's a chance to see where you are with the rest of them, or, whether it's just a chance to go try to get another Wally. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I assume we'll see more of them at Indy simply because it's Indy, but it's a better show when the Cobra Jets are in it.
I have a feeling that they'll be at Indy, and if they're not at Indy, then I've got big questions. Alan, any final thoughts before we head to Brainerd? You want to do a little preview of Brainerd, the zoo, Brainerd, great race, all about the race when you go to Brainerd, because it's center stage in that part of the country.
I'm actually headed there right now. I am going to fly up to Brainerd today. They've got a regional event that is Thursday and Friday, or it's Wednesday and Thursday. They have a divisional event up there before we get into the Nationals, which is something that, to my knowledge, has never been done before, especially a midweek thing. But looking forward to that. So there's going to be a lot of racing. There's going to be the typical Brainerd fun. There is one thing on a personal note that I'd like to throw out there since we didn't do the show last week. Kelly Crandall from Racer.com magazine and the Racing Writers podcast got together with me. She came out in Sonoma and we talked about, hey, would you like to be on? And so we did a podcast basically about how I got started in this, what I've done, and it is up right now on the Racing Writers podcast. I believe she did somebody this past week. Anthony Alfredo, she did this past week. They post one every Monday. So Monday's going to be the second one down. But if anybody's interested in a little bit about the history of, how I got started, how I got going, it's about an hour long. But, Kelly, who is branching out from her NASCAR roots, and, she has formed a genuine fascination now with NHRA. So I think we're going to see more and more of her coming out and covering. And she's got such a NASCAR following. It can only help if she gets her listeners and her followers to go, NHRA's really cool. So anyway, I was honored that she asked me to do it. It was a genuine pleasure to do it. And if anybody's interested, you can certainly find it. It's on, whatever it is, Apple and Spotify and blah, blah, blah. I could find
wherever
it.
Wherever you get your shows. She's everywhere. And I did notice that you got the gig by making fun of your friends. And what I would like is for the audience, listen, everybody, Alan says it right. We want Alan's numbers to be bigger than Baby Alfredo's numbers. Period, cut, dry, end of story. Reinhart's numbers. So go click on the podcast and listen to it. Alan, great job. I'll see you on midday Friday. I'm leaving at 6 a.m. Friday morning and, over hill, over dale. But eventually I will arrive in Brainerd for another NHRA Camping World Series event. It's been going great. Been loving the show. Having a great time. Can't wait to see you.
Well, I hope the hurricane doesn't get you. Take care of yourself for the next couple of days, and I will see you when you get to Brainerd.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate you. There he goes, the voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart, with us here on WFO Radio. Yeah, the hurricane, knock wood, is going south, and it's obviously very upsetting to whoever receives it. But I was very concerned that it would affect my travel later on in the week, and also, leaving my friends and family down here to deal with a, tropical storm, hurricane, whatever it might be. Those are always tough. A couple of years back, while at Indy, this is kind of a normal thing. Hurricane season, this is when it all goes down. But hey, we're good to go. I feel like we are good to go. All right, put your comments in the comment section. I want to read you Hartford's deal. I know we got a lot of people on there. I ask you to stick around to hear what Matt Hartford wrote. The problem with Facebook is you can only have 5,000 friends, right? And it can only go so far when like Hartford tags me, Brian, and Amanda. It's been everywhere, but I want to make sure you all see it too, because it came out of his personal page, and so a lot of great comments on there. Scotty Richardson, everybody, Mason, everyone commenting on Hartford's post, and I think it sums it up. I do want to say though that why does it have to be so vicious, right? The commentary, like Brad and the NHRA and the rules makers. And I know when you're at the baseball game and everybody's like, hey, ump, you suck. That's not us. Okay. Brad's been doing this. A lot of people question. He's been the chief starter since 2019. They were going to go with like rotating starters and they changed their mind. They made a different decision, and Brad has been the guy. So he got all of 2019 in, he got a truncated 2020 in, and now here we go. So he's been the Division 7 starter for since 2001, for a long time. The guy's got a life of drag racing experience. But when you put it into, the big show, and you're on Fox, and you're taking into consideration all these additional elements, right? Time, schedule, fairness, all of these things. The guy made the call, and that's it. And you don't agree with the call, but do you have the responsibility of making the call? The answer is no. And you, in that exact situation, might have reacted totally different than you think you would have. Simple as that. So get your comments in the comment section. Real quick, I'm going to tell you about the people who make it possible for me to be here and do this show. For instance, last night we had Tommy Noodles on our Ignition show, audio only, so that you subscribe to the podcast. Great stuff, a lot of insight about a lot of subjects that don't necessarily get discussed. Tommy, who is my co-host on XM, and we've known each other going back to 2003, 2004, something like that, giving us an update on his boy Jacob. Mike Race Guitar is out there riding for children's cancer. A lot of great stuff going on. Please check out the Ignition show. We talk some NASCAR, road courses, IndyCar, etc. Also a fair amount of drag racing. I told some stories from Vegas and what a great time I had at the Cosmopolitan, by the way. What a beautiful place. Amazing stuff. And the Patreons get to be a live studio audience for that. We've got Matt in Australia who logs on every week, and Monica is on there every week listening, and Derek chiming in, adding to the show. It is great. These are people who support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/WFO radio. If you love the show, you want to support the show, sign up for a membership, VIP membership. And, there's many tiers, and you can choose like tiers. There probably are some tears too, especially when I go on vacation, but had to do it, guys. So refreshed. Marvin Rodak, rodakscoffeeandgrills.com. Let me tell you about Marvin. Do you like coffee? Do you require and need coffee like I do? Yes. 817-924-6821. Call Marvin, get a little roasted up for you, shipped out, fresh per your order. Do it now. Plus barbecues, hot sauces, spice rubs. And you can even go by the showroom down there in Fort Worth, Texas, which I plan to do right around the Fall Nationals and the Texas Motorplex and the Stampede of Speed. Yay! Why do I feel the need to do that every time? Samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. Start your education at full speed. Blockhead CNC programs, motorsport EFI tuning. They're approved to train veterans under the GI Bill. You want to end up in aerospace, you want to end up in space, you want to end up in motorsports, call Brian Massengill at Samtech and tell him you heard about it on WFO Radio and see if that's the future that will work out for you. Great education, Great place to start. Mentioned Total Seal piston rings, or maybe I haven't. Well, I got Hartford's whole comment here. Hope he wants this public because it's about to go public. TotalSeal.com. They're going to be putting on some great seminars at races, getting the next generation involved. But ultimately, if you want to build an engine with maximum power, you need to start with Total Seal first. Depends on what you're trying to do, by the way. Do you want 1,400 horsepower to go to the grocery store? You should tell them first, because that changes your whole combination. But Keith Jones, Lake Speed, you might not get Hartford on the phone, but reach out to them and tell them you heard about it on WFO Radio. Same is true with Frank Hawley's drag racing school. Really appreciate these guys and girls over there, because they, our sport is so challenging to get people to understand what it's all about. Like, you've all thrown and caught a baseball, had a catch. They're talking about the field of dreams, having a catch with your dad. And we've all had that experience. And when they walked out of the corn, you felt it, right? But for me to tell you that the similar experience for me was my dad shaking my hand before I rolled up the window to roll into the water box for a round of eliminations. And that's the same feeling for me. How do I share that with people? How do they relate to what that is? It's very tough. And Frank has created a scenario where, for a very minimal amount of money, courses start at $399, you can drive a dragster and even compete for a little extra against people and put on a race. Like, Frank is doing that. It's like Field of Dreams for drag racing. It's pretty cool. Or baseball fantasy camp, where Kramer got in a fight with Joe Pepitone. That can happen too at Frank Hawley's drag racing school, the Dragster Adventure. Check them out, frankhawley.com. Really appreciate our sponsors. And, it's the time of year where new sponsors for 2022 are encouraged. If you're interested in having your name said over and over and over on WFO Radio to our vast and wide and growing audience, you can reach out to me, Joe, at WFOradio.com. Big shout out to our friends at Nitro Fish. Way to go. It was great to see Bo and Randy Lynn at the track. Randy Lynn gets to the final round, goes red, but still Randy Lynn's ship. Yeah. I'm back. Oh, I'm in the final. What? It's pretty amazing. Amazing stuff. I want to remind everybody, later today, 4 p.m. Eastern time, John Force right here. John Force on the show. And we're going to talk to John about his win and about what's going on. And he's going to reveal whatever he wants, because he's John Force. If he wants to not talk about drag racing, we'll not talk about drag racing. We'll talk about whatever John wants to talk about. What is it? Right? John Force. And just let me say, it's amazing. If you guys aren't appreciating what's happening with John Force, like, this should be, the glass is always half full and the glass is half empty, right? Like, are we doing a great job? Man, it's great. We're out here doing our job. But the John Force story should transcend drag racing. It should transcend. The guy should be on the cover of AARP magazine. Should, right? There should be stories about this man who's 72 years old winning against J.R. Todd and Robert Height and Paul Lee and people half his age or a third his age. And yeah, the car does most of the work, but he's doing his job. He's a percentage of it. And so when you do the algorithm of the car and the driver and the, and Tony, Tony Padragon, who I love and have great respect for, and he's a friend, if the track was an eighth mile long, it would have been different. Well, if we were playing darts, it would probably been different, right? If we were on a sprint car track, it would definitely been different. Things would have been different if we elected to not go to the race and I had stayed in Vegas and just gambled my life away. Things would have definitely have been different. That's not John Force winning at 72 years old, multiple races, and taking over the points lead. That is a mind-blowing stat. What about when, Phil Necro throws a no-hitter? They don't say, well, those guys, if he wasn't throwing the knuckleball, it would have been different. That's not what happens. Maybe there's a little John doesn't like to take any credit, and there's reluctance maybe to give credit. I don't know what people think. I don't know what's going on. All I know is that John Force is 72 years old, and he is at the top of his game, at the top of the sport. Maybe not the top of his game, but he's hiring the people and he's buying the parts and he's making sure that the team around him, or maybe he's not even doing it. Maybe he told Robert, you need to make sure that the people around me are good enough to make my old butt win. And they are. Guess who gets the credit for that? John Force. So I think it's amazing. I think it's sad that more is not being made of it outside the sport of drag racing. And if there's a failure, if there's any failures, that's the failure. To reach out to the elder folks. Like, what's happening here? How is this happening? Young guys would be killing them in reaction to the practice tree. Yeah, well, we don't race on the practice tree. All right, here's the Hartford thing. Hartford titles it Burn Down for Total Seal. Several people have asked my opinion on the Bruno Massel Mason McGaha double DQ. I listened to it while sitting in my car as we were fourth pair. Eddie Granacci as crew chief, was also giving me the play-by-play on my radio when he was on the line. Here is my take on the entire situation. Burn downs are great for the fans for sure. However, at some point, we as racers have to understand that the starter, Brad Hardy, is in control during the staging process. He gave them plenty of time and motioned to them to go in more than once. Fact. I know the engine temps were extremely hot and in a range that could also impact safety. I suspect that this also weighed in Brad's decision. And in my conversation with Brad today, he did say that. Safe, fair race for everyone. The quote. Do you disagree? I don't think so. Back to Hartford. It is widely known that the 8 and 9 qualifier will be first pair out on Sunday. This is a disadvantage to both cars. The second pair and on back get to run in the tracks of the same rubber of a pro stock car and get to see what happened with the first pair. If Brad would have let them simply cool off and refuel, they would have been at the back of the pack, 8th pair. This would have been an advantage for them, and that was not earned in qualifying. Fast forward to the next race, it's easy to assume that the first pair would do the same thing to get the advantage of being the last pair. I am sure many do not agree with the DQ, but as with any sport, the referee or official has control of the situation, period. It's an actual period, not the word period, which so many people write the word period as if it's more powerful than an actual period. Just use the period. If you disobey the official, then would be willing to accept, then be willing to accept the consequences. In this situation, I agree 100% with the outcome of a double DQ, says Matt Hartford. And he told me something very similar. And I spoke with Eddie G, as well. And I spoke with a lot of people about this. And, the more time you take to get it right, that's fine. But Brad had to do it. And, the NHRA officials who are in his ear, they had to do it in real time in front of the world. And they sent a message. The message has been sent. Don't do that again. If you want to have a burn down, listen to the starter. And Brad will let you go. And you guys will have your little thing. And emotions you in there now. It's time to go. It's time to go. And you're expecting, he'll shut us off and we get to do a thing and we get to do it. Yeah, you can't expect that. Maybe it'll happen, but maybe it won't. Also, a lot of people have said, well, what if it was Erica Enders and Greg Anderson doing it? Would they have been treated the same way? And that's a good question, right? And the answer, in my opinion, is that Erica Enders and Greg Anderson aren't going to do that. Like, I think they would obey the starter. And I think that's just what was missed in this situation. Maybe the expectations of the outcome. Like, you expect what the outcome is. And all the analogies that I keep thinking of it's not right, because I keep thinking of police officers, right? I keep it's authority, right? Like, ultimately, respect for authority. In certain situations, there's respect for authority and you have to obey. And this is a situation, respect for authority, and you have to obey. Now, it's not life or death with police officers, but it's similar. And they were commanded. You will go in. And then do they need to hear it verbally? Like, how many times does Brad need to tell them? Like, is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 7? So this is what happened. This is the result. And it all went down this way. And that's it. Can't change it. Can't go back. This is it. It happened. And this is how it happened. And was an opportunity missed, or could he have created a third option? Like I mentioned, the Kobayashi Maru, reprogram the test. Will it be different next time? Got to keep watching. Got to find out. Pro stock. Compelling. All right, let's see what people say. Well said by Hartford. Don't forget, 4 p.m., John Force. Well said by Hartford. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you. Thanks. Another great show, says Jeff. Jeff's got an awesome Corvette, 67 Vet. He's not sharing it with us. Scott says, Q1 John Force, 816. Oh, Ron, I don't know what you're saying, man. I'm confused. Points? Is that what it is? Yes, John Force is a points leader. And it could be a different points leader. Whoever wins the next race, good chance they're going to be the points leader. You're watching Racing History with John Force. You know, to think that John Force is going to go out there and win the championship. You can't say that right now. But it'd be pretty good to get ahead of it. Like, what if there's a 48-year-old pitcher out there and he's competing for the Cy Young or his team is in first? Do you think it would be a big story? Come on, media types. Don't overcompensate for the fact that John Force has gotten a lot of pub over the years. Don't accidentally overcompensate by not talking about something amazing that's happening that you're kind of like, oh, well, you know, people are tired of hearing about John Force. You got to consider the source on that. Love the closed caption. It's loud in my shop. I don't know what you're talking about. A lot of people say the YouTube does closed caption of the show, and I guess I should shut that off. Ask John about the electric toaster, and we'll see you on the Power Hour. Yes, I guess it's confirmed, Sam. Thank you. Sam Smith, my buddy, Slam and Sam. I will be on the Comp Plus Power Hour tonight at 9:30. And I know what you're thinking. Joe, you're going to stay up beyond 9:30 and continue your very long work day that it has a John Force interview and Poker Action Line show and all of this stuff to be on the Power Hour with Monday Morning Racer Lee and Slam and Sam and Jeff Ferenc? Absolutely, yes. I'm going to be on there. They better be ready, though, because I'm a very different person when I don't have the responsibility. That's the thing, guys. Responsibility changes your opinion. You don't know because you don't have it. And I don't know because I don't have it. But I know that if I have it, it's different. That's all. That's all. About whatever the subject, right? The world, what's happening in the world. Suddenly, it's your responsibility. Oh, I may change my opinion because it matters. It's great to see Bo and Randy Land. Steve says Kramer got in a fight with Mickey Mantle. No, man, I was Joe Pepitone. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to have to go double check. When it comes to Seinfeld, I'm usually right, but sometimes I'm wrong, right? These pretzels are making me thirsty. Deep and Hawk says WFO. Joe Lee, what's up? Can you imagine the driver's left leg during that burn down? Well, exactly, Joe Lee. And I barely know, but I have a little experience. It's not easy to just hold that clutch in. It's not easy. And there was a burn down in a factory showdown like 20 minutes later. That was the appropriate amount of time. Frank is the most important man in drag racing, in my opinion. Holly? Good argument. Later, Sam. Rick says officials have it tough. They're expected to get it right all the time. And if they don't, they get torched. But see, here's the thing. And this is taking me a long time to figure out too, but I'm starting to get there as I age and wither. What is said on social media doesn't matter. The opinions of various people, like you walk through the grocery store and you walked up and you asked them, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about the vaccine? What do you think about Afghanistan? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Like, ultimately, they can have an opinion. It's their right. It's great if they do. That's great. But without any responsibility, you can say anything. The second that you're responsible and connected to it and part of something bigger than yourself, it will change the way you feel about anything. And so social media has given everybody their own show and their own ability to post out whatever they want, many of whom do it just to get a negative reaction. Like, what is their purpose in their post? Is their purpose to put out an insightful opinion and add to the global conversation about our subject and help elevate the conversation? Or is it to piss some people off, right? Like, no, a lot of them are deliberately doing it just to let's get everybody fired up, stir the pot. Yeah. And having worked in talk radio for many years where the prime directive is to stir the pot, I know that. And social media is no different, except everybody's got their own show and everybody's got their own opportunity to stir the pot for whatever reason. Set up a straw man. Oh, the NHRA, they're doing this on purpose. Like, what kind of opinion is that? Right? What was Chris talking about? One of the Pro Stock cars was 3-inch tall in tech. No one was disqualified. I don't know. I haven't seen the show. My DVR didn't get the show. My DVR got, I got a problem. Here in South Florida, Miami Market, NHRA, it doesn't always get shown when it's on Fox. Sometimes they put on an infomercial or whatever. I encourage all my South Florida fans and people from outside of South Florida to call WSVN 7 Fox and tell them to put on NHRA drag racing. Now, was it on? Was it not on? The DVR didn't get it. And my dad watches on NHRA.tv. So I missed some of that stuff. Missed it. And for the replay, guess it was soccer on, so I didn't get it. And I'd like to go back and see the burn down and study it. This many seconds in and this many seconds in, and then this happened and then that happened. And look at that. Like, that's how I like to do things. But it's not available to me at the moment. Monica says, thanks, Joe. Great early show. What do you guys think of the time? Do we need to get Reinhart up super early every week because we had huge explosive numbers? Or is it all about the burn down? Thank you. And everybody's talking about KC Wolf kissing me on the starting line. Yeah, that was something. I don't know what to say. I'm all about the show. It went crazy because at first we were going to fight. And I have this thing where I always like to get an Ussie with the mascots, like anybody in a big fuzzy suit. I just think it's cool to be, back to the days at Disney with Mickey, the mouse. I always like to get an Ussie which is a picture of me and someone else because it's us, not self. And, but this Wolf man, he started coming at me because Reinhart revealed that I'm a Miami Dolphins fan. And I felt like, here I am being deferential to him because they had just won the Super Bowl and then been to the Super Bowl. It's like, yeah, no. And then he started to get aggressive with me. And I really had the thought, I'm going to share this with you. And I think I would have been in big trouble because I have responsibility. But when the Wolf started to antagonize me on the starting line, I thought, because, not every thought gets acted upon. Wouldn't it be great if I just lowered my shoulder and ran at him and tackled him? That would be great. But then I thought, yeah, but what if he gets hurt? What if I get hurt? What if he gets stuck to the starting line with all that fur? And are there any cameras around? No, there's no cameras around. It's not worth getting fired or in trouble if it's not going to be like the greatest thing that's ever happened and get on SportsCenter. So I changed my tact and I was like, hey, man, it's cool. You guys. And then the Wolf kissed me. And it was something. Too many people. Chuck, great show as always. WFO, Cian Brainerd. Oh, that's right, Chuck. I'm going to bring your T-shirt. Send me your shirt size. Chuck is one of our great Patreons and has earned a WFO crew shirt. And I'm going to bring it to you. I'm going to hand deliver it, Chuck. That's what's going to make it different and special and thus justify the long delay. Great show. This guy says, cool. Jim says, no problem. Monica says, thanks, Jim. I don't know what they're talking. They're doing their own show. The Writers Podcast. Oh, the one that Reinhart, what was the name of the podcast? The Racing Writers Podcast. Go listen. Everybody go listen. There's no, people like to hoard their audience. That cannot happen. The day that, like this show, you don't like it anymore, man, go get another show and then come back. Maybe you'll come back. I do what I do. This is pretty much what it is. I think the Ignition Show is very high level entertainment. There's comedy, there's great stuff. But if you're looking for something specific, just listen to podcasts. That's it. Create new podcast listeners for us. And then I'll do what I do to turn the people that listen once into people that listen 5 times and then every week. And if they like it, they like it. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. And that's it. Hey, I want to mention this divisional race that is going on is going to be on NHRA.tv for free. Everybody needs to know that. Let's see. What is it? Getting a little evil there, Joe. There's a dark side. Everybody, come on. It's a mascot. He's not even real. Get out of here. Yeah, what do you mean? Nobody is just pure goodness. Even Ted Lasso. I'm guessing you won in Vegas. You're just too happy. I was in Vegas, and that's a win. You got to listen to the Ignition Show to get my full experience. This guy, way to bring us down, Bracket Racer. Fuel is dying as soon as Forrest Schumacher and Colletta are gone. I don't know that that's necessarily the truth, because Robert Haidt and you got Doug Colletta, and you've got people that love this. I don't think that that's the case. He goes on, the only people who do not think people are tired of hearing about John Force are buddies up in the NHRA high tower. Yeah, I don't know, Bracket Racer 9622. I think that you are mistaken. And I was having a great conversation with Brian. And, he does not authorize me to tell this, but we were talking about radio versus the world and that great, new category that, flared up and is now flaring back down because of various reasons. And the staying power of Nitro is undeniable. This thing's been going for a long, long time. I would like to see some new names, like obviously Davis and Ashley. Great job. Could they get 2 cars? Antron Brown. What can they do? Can they bring in the money? What's going to happen? But yes, Force, John Force, Don Schumacher, Connie Coletta their service to drag racing is unquestioned. Will the sport die without them? It's worth that. It's worth thinking about, Bracket Racer. And that's your opinion. That's good. It remains to be seen. Maybe you're right. But I can tell you there's a lot of people out there, young people, who will fight to keep it alive. There it is. Jim loves the Star Trek reference. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Star Trek on the planes. The movies, underappreciated. But still make me mad at the same time. The new movies, underappreciated. I love it when you share your inner thoughts. Yeah, I don't have to do that. That's what Ignition is all about. It's not cheating if everybody can do it, though, right? Well, it all depends. Jeff says Frank Hawley is worth every penny. All right, this is line one. Technically, yes, but at a certain point, might as well practice tree race. That's true, too. Or virtual race, like all that during the pandemic, animation racing, simulator racing, which I watched at first and then I kind of boycotted because no, I'm not going to watch animation racing. I'm going to watch, there's a real person behind it. Yeah, I know. I want real cars, real people, real parts, real speed, real fire. You're not going to just show me a game and watch it. Sorry. Love him or hate him, Force moves the needle. Guess what? Absolutely correct, sir. Love him or hate him, which who hates John Force? Like, what kind of a person do you have to be to hate John Force? Imperfect person? Who isn't? Definitely gotten his fair share of publicity over the years? Absolutely, yes. Have there been times where he's been overcovered? Absolutely, yes. Right? Like in the ESPN days, I think overcovered. Have mistakes been made along the way? Yes, where haven't they? But right now, like, how much coverage should the most recent race winner get? How much coverage should someone who has won 3 races in a year get? How much coverage should the points leader get? Block those off. Now, how much coverage should the sport's most recognizable personality get? How much coverage should the sport's winningest driver ever get? You combine all those things into one, and you're talking about John Force. What if Richard Petty in like 1994 had gone out there, or 1992, whenever his final race was, 92, when Jeff Gordon rolled around, Alan Kowicki's last race, et cetera, and so on. What if Richard Petty had won that race? Like, come on, guys. Don't let your personal biases mess with the coverage of the sport. We're seeing a kind of a weird miracle happening here with John Force. Just because you've seen him your whole life, there's a lot of people. There's a 72-year-old guy out there doing it. What about that Clint Eastwood movie, Gran Torino? Everybody loved that because the old guy was kicking ass. Yeah, right? But John Force, when he's kicking ass, you don't like it? What's wrong with you? Shame. Get with the program here. You're seeing something amazing. This guy says someone needs to put Stevie Fast in a nitro car. Yes, agree. Love the rules. All right, well, guess what? We're going to be back at 4 o'clock with the man, John Force. Help me share the show, guys. Like, help me get the word out about this program and our crazy different times. Do it now. Share this show. Get it out there. If you listen to the end, don't forget the podcast and the sponsors and all of it. WFO.